This happened a couple of years ago, right before school let out for summer. It was the very last day of 8th grade, the kind of day you'd expect, buzzing with excitement, mixed with that bittersweet weight of goodbyes. Everyone was running around, scribbling signatures and cheesy messages in each other's yearbooks. My middle school was massive, easily over 1,000 students. To manage the chaos, the teachers collected all the yearbooks and passed them around classrooms, making sure everyone got a chance to sign. Sounds organized, but honestly, it was a recipe for disaster. Anyone could write anything in anyone's book, no oversight, no filter. Teachers tried to keep it under control, but I knew some kids had used that freedom to write cruel, ugly things to people they didn't like. When I finally got my yearbook back, I flipped through the pages, smiling at the goofy notes from my friends, until I saw it. A signature under the photo of someone I'd never seen before. Samuel Robinson III. That name is burned into my memory, and not in a good way. His message was chilling in its simplicity. "Hags, I'll be seeing you again." I froze. I'd never met this kid, never spoken to him once. There was no reason for him to write in my book, let alone say something that felt like a threat. But the day was over, and there was nothing I could do. School was done, summer was starting. I pushed it out of my mind, just some weird kid being weird. A few hours later, I was at home, hosting a sleepover in the basement with my best friends Kevin, David, and Kieran. We were gorging on Doritos and blasting Call of Duty, the sound filling the space beneath my parents' quiet house. Their bedroom was 3 floors above us, perfect for loud, reckless fun. Around 2 a.m., while we were messing with my dad's rowing machine, a sharp knock rattled the storm door. The sudden noise snapped us all silent. Who the hell knocks on a storm door at this hour? The knocking came again, rhythmic, deliberate. It was clear whoever it was didn't want to wake my parents. Or maybe they knew we were down there. Kieran, unable to hold back, shouted, "Who's there?" I wanted to smack him. Now everyone outside knew we were here. The knocking stopped. After a long pause, a muffled voice called out, "Come around to the back door." The voice was high-pitched, eerily cheerful, like a friend trying to sneak into our sleepover. Definitely a teenager's voice, and not a fake one. That sent a cold spike of fear through me. My friends, however, seemed almost excited, like this was some kind of thrilling mystery. They pushed me to check it out. Reluctantly, we crept upstairs, careful to stay quiet. I approached the back door, heart pounding. Through the narrow glass panel, I saw a shadowy figure standing under the weak porch light. Closer now, I nearly dropped to my knees. It was him. Samuel Robinson III. My friends were about to open the door, but I stopped them, warning them who it was and telling them about his message. Their excitement faded. Sam stood outside, watching us. Then, with a slow motion, he pointed to the side of the house, like he wanted me to come over to the kitchen window. It's strange, none of us really took the danger seriously. Maybe because he was just a kid from school, not some stranger. Still, I wasn't about to open the door. I cracked the window a tiny bit, my friends hovering nearby. Sam moved close and smiled, that same creepy smile from the yearbook note. "Oh, so you got my message," he said, introducing himself casually. He told me he'd always been watching me, from afar. Said we could have been friends. I nodded, hoping to calm him down. There was no way I'd ever be friends with this guy. I asked how he knew where I lived. No answer. Before I could try to keep things calm, David blurted out, "Creepy stalker, get lost." Sam's smile vanished like a flicker. His head tilted, like he was confused. Then his face twisted into something darker, pure hatred. He started screaming at us, words full of venom, how he hated my friends, how we should all just die, and bizarre, personal things no one should have known. He lunged at the window, trying to force it open. I slammed it shut and locked it tight. Sam snarled and pounded on the glass like a wild animal, almost breaking it. Just then, my parents stormed downstairs, furious and demanding to know what was going on. Sam took off into the night. I told my parents everything, and my dad ran outside in his underwear, but Sam was gone. Oddly, my parents didn't call the police. They said they'd handle it with the school the next day, giving the kid the benefit of the doubt. The morning after, when the school got involved, we learned the real nightmare. Sam had been expelled weeks earlier. He wasn't supposed to be anywhere near the school on that last day. The yearbooks had been printed before he was kicked out, which explained why his photo was still there. That meant he had snuck into the school just to write that message to me. The school tried to track him down, but it was like he never existed, no records, no family, nothing. The whole thing turned into a big deal, but no one could find him. It was like he vanished into thin air. But here's the thing, we kept everything under wraps. To this day, I still have no clue how he knew where I lived. That's what haunts me the most. The only theory we had was that Sam was some disturbed, troubled kid who fixated on me for reasons no one understood. He must have been stalking me for months, maybe longer. My parents were on edge for weeks after it all, but we never talked about it. It was too weird, too uncomfortable. And ever since that night, living in that same house has never felt normal again. My friend Garrett? He's unhinged. And when I say unhinged, I mean completely off the rails. He's the kind of guy who brags about being a wild animal, fights, rage, never shutting up, always at the gym like it's his second home. I've got 5 terrifying stories about Garrett, but the worst one, the one that still messes with me, happened just a couple weeks ago. And yeah, it involves me directly, so I'm sticking to telling my own side of this nightmare. It was the last day of senior year, May 2019. Graduation wasn't for a few days yet, but we were done with classes. It's tradition for all seniors to get absolutely hammered on the last day of school, so naturally, that's exactly what we did. We all gathered by the huge clock tower at the center of campus, the usual haunt, around 10 p.m. The place was packed. Over 1,000 people squeezed into the courtyard, all drinking, laughing, yelling. For me, it was bittersweet, but mostly relief. Finals had been brutal. There were 6 of us, me, C, T, R, N, and Garrett. I'm only using initials for the others because they probably wouldn't want their names out there. We all lived off campus, so after the clock tower party, we had to walk through the city to get home. The city's got a decent number of homeless people, so running into some of them late at night isn't unusual. As we crossed a street, this one homeless guy suddenly bolted up to us, twitching like he was wired on something. Most homeless folks here keep to themselves, spaced out on drugs, not noticing much, but this guy. He wanted trouble. He stood right in the crosswalk yelling at us, like some twisted troll guarding a bridge. We laughed nervously and tried to circle around him, careful not to provoke him. Everyone but Garrett. Instead of backing off, Garrett started shouting back, telling the guy to get the fuck out of the street and stop bothering strangers. The homeless man didn't like that one bit. He took a few threatening steps forward. The rest of us jumped in, trying to keep the situation from blowing up. We looked like a wall of people, and maybe that intimidated him, because he stopped advancing and went back to yelling nonsense. I tried to pull Garrett away, but he shoved my hand off. Before anyone could react, Garrett charged the homeless guy screaming at the top of his lungs. The guy bolted, and Garrett stopped, laughing like it was the funniest thing ever. Honestly, it was hard not to laugh. Watching Garrett sprint at a twitching man, then scatter him like a flock of birds, messed up, but kind of ridiculous. We started walking home after that, but after a few minutes, we realized the homeless man was following us. He caught us looking back, and his yelling got worse, talking about how we'd made a huge mistake and how he was going to call a niche or something. I have no clue what that meant. We heckled him, trying to scare him off, but I think we only made things worse. Look, I'm not proud of how things unfolded that night. We'd been celebrating hard, and none of us were in the right headspace to think clearly. About a block from our house, the guy was still trailing us, keeping a bit of distance, but definitely following. I told the guys I wasn't cool leading him right to our doorstep. They agreed. But, true to form, Garrett took off running at the homeless man again before we could decide anything. The guy ran off once more. Garrett jogged back, and we all hurried up the street. We thought that was the end of it. I'm not even going to go into what happened back at the house. Let's just say it was a level of degeneracy I won't be repeating anytime soon. Sometime later, I was stumbling out to grab my DoorDash when something caught my eye. The side gate to our backyard was wide open. We always kept it closed with a thin piece of twine, so someone had to have undone it deliberately. I immediately put two and two together. It had to be that homeless guy. I knew I should have told my friends, but my drunken brain decided to investigate alone. I set the DoorDash on the porch and circled the house, trying to keep my balance. Just as I rounded the corner into the backyard, everything went dark. Before I even saw anything, a rope wrapped tight around my throat. I flailed, panicking, but it was useless. Someone was strangling me from behind. The rough rope cut into my skin as he tightened his grip. I honestly thought I was going to die. Then, with all the strength I had left, I swung my legs back and knocked him off balance. We crashed to the ground, and I could finally breathe again. But he was still on top of me. In a wild rage, he clawed at my face. I could feel blood running down my cheeks. I threw him off and scrambled up as fast as I could. He took off, disappearing into the shadows. I'll keep it short from here. I had to go to the hospital that night. The cuts weren't deep, but I needed a series of shots to guard against any diseases he might have carried. The police weren't helpful. Since I was moving out in a week, there wasn't much they could do. And the worst part about the whole thing was that I had visible cuts in all my graduation photos. Garrett felt terrible. He ended up taking me to the ER, but I never held anything against him. I just hope he's learned his lesson. Don't antagonize people who have nothing left to lose. Back in 7th grade, there was this kid named Sven in my homeroom. To put it mildly, he was strange. Not just shy or quiet, genuinely odd. He never socialized with anyone, even though people tried to include him. I didn't have all my classes with him, but whenever I saw him, he'd be sitting in the same spot, the back corner of every classroom, opposite the door. He wore the exact same outfit every single day, cargo shorts and an oversized burgundy hoodie that swallowed him whole. He barely spoke, but when he did, he had this deep, unsettling voice that other kids mocked mercilessly. I don't recall him having any friends. Once, my friend Tyler caught him slicing worms during recess, something that probably got him detention. Speaking of recess, Sven always spent it alone, standing by the fence bordering the woods. He never played games or acted like a kid. Just stood there, staring. Some friends said they'd seen him talking to someone on the other side of the fence. I never saw that, so I won't spread rumors. Sven had his quirks and weird habits, typical for a strange middle schooler, but none that seemed relevant until one particular day. It was the last day of school. My middle school was huge, with tons of students and multiple classes for each grade running at the same time. There was a tradition where, on the last day, students from the same grade would sneak into random classrooms to mess with the teachers. I'm pretty sure the teachers played along. That day, I found myself in one of the few classes I shared with Sven. The class was a mix of students from all over, switched around, but there were way more kids in the room than usual. I didn't recognize most of them. I was a stickler for rules back then, so I didn't join in the chaos like my friends did. I was alone in the classroom except for Sven, the only familiar face. But Sven was acting stranger than usual. He was tapping his foot aggressively, something I'd never seen before. His eyes darted around the room, like he was searching for someone. It didn't feel like he was watching me, but I wasn't sure what he was looking for. Then, the teacher, Miss Bell, asked us to get into groups to work on some reflection worksheet. She walked over to her desk, picked up the classroom phone, and turned her back. A few minutes later, another teacher from the next room showed up. They whispered just outside the door. Their conversation was short but tense, like they were trying not to cause a scene. Miss Bell looked uneasy, nervous, even. After they finished, they both returned and knelt beside a few specific desks. I couldn't hear what was said, but it was quiet, secretive. Those kids got up and quietly followed the teachers out into the hallway. No one else seemed to notice. Miss Bell came back alone and went back to shuffling papers, acting like nothing happened. Then, the fire alarm blared. Miss Bell didn't even flinch, like she knew this would happen. We lined up and filed outside to the field behind the school. As usual, we grouped by homeroom. But while standing there, I looked back at the school. For a split second, I thought I saw something move behind a second-story window. It was quick, maybe just a shadow or reflection, but it felt wrong. The school was supposed to be empty. I kept quiet, but inside, I was scared to go back in. We never did. Before the alarm even stopped ringing, police sirens wailed. One by one, squad cars lined the parking lot. Officers rushed inside the building. Teachers told us to stay calm and wait. Later, we were told school was letting out early, no buses, parents had to pick us up. No one ever explained what had happened. My parents told me what the school had shared. A group of kids who didn't even attend our school, had broken in. Rumors spread that they planned to set the school on fire. Miss Bell had found alarming tools in one kid's backpack. The fire drill was a cover to get everyone out safely. The strangest part? My mom said those kids were led in through the side fence, the same fence Sven stood by during recess. The whole thing was bizarre. I still can't fully process it. And I never saw Sven again.